whoa, what happened there? How did it get that high? Or how did I spend that much money? Right. And it happens one small transaction at a time. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Excited to be with you today. Well, if you're joining me this evening, then you're probably at least a bit aware of what your spending habits are and how they might be affecting your life as a whole. Now, a lot of times people, we deal with this. It can be difficult to see the big picture in it, right? So we can't see how these small purchases are really making an impact on our finances as a whole, right? It's kind of like you're just going through the month and you're just living life and doing your thing and taking care of kids and, doing whatever it is that you normally do, right? And then suddenly you look at the bank account or the credit card statement and you're like, whoa, what happened there? How did it get that high? Or how did I spend that much money? Right. And it happens one small transaction at a time. We aren't out spending thousands of dollars generally. I know there's some of us, we have make big purchases, totally okay. But we're not generally out there spending thousands of dollars and getting into debt because of that. It's really in the $10 to $20 increments that eventually add up to thousands of dollars by the end of the year. And that is really where it impacts your life the most. Now, what do we do about it? Not spend money. If you've been in this group for a while, that's not true. I'm all about spending your money and enjoying spending money and enjoying your life and doing everything that you want with that. So, introduce myself and then we'll jump into it. And this is going to be the topic of the training. How do we control our spending without feeling miserable about, not spending money on certain things that don't suit us anymore, right? So for those of you that don't know, my name's Erica. I am a financial coach, wealth coach, and I help moms be able to learn how to manage their spending so that they can achieve their big financial goals. I am the founder of the Savvy Spending Mamas, as well as the Intentional Spending Method, which is my proprietary method and how I help my clients be able to really create a money system that supports them throughout their life. So let's jump into this today. Now, tell me in the comments if you've tried what I like to call a financial diet, where you are trying to restrict to achieve a goal, right? And the thing about that is, just like, if you're trying to do the Atkins diet, it's not sustainable. There's very few people that are able to do something like that and be able to stick with it throughout their entire life. And so that's one of the problems that I have with the baby steps with Dave Ramsey and things like that is that, you know, it's not a sustainable system. It is for most people. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't people out there that are able to do the baby steps and hit baby step number 7 and live and enjoy their life. There are, and we all know that, right? But for most of us, this is not going to be a sustainable change. This is not going to be a way that you can sustainably do it because it is relying on you restricting yourself for a significant portion of your life to reach that goal, right? And that can be difficult for most of us, especially those of us who are neurodivergent and have ADHD and just struggle with impulsive spending and things like that. These, just like with the Atkins diet, just like with Dave Ramsey's program, there are good results short term, right? You might be able to get on a budget, you might be able to control some spending, but eventually you're going to fall back on your old habits. In most cases, I'm in a bunch of groups with women that are all doing these programs, and it is the same thing where they get to baby step number 3 or even baby step number 2, something happens and they're back to their emergency fund, right? And so it's not a sustainable thing for long-term success. And so you need to be able to figure out a way to be able to do that. And I wanted to talk about because I just got a message from a previous client, somebody that I had worked with right when I first started. It was like 4 years ago. I got a message from her, and she was saying how, thank you. I wanted to send you a message because I had a car problem come up this week and it was expensive. It was $550. And I did not worry about it at all. It was a nuisance, but it was not something that I stressed about because I still had money in the bank. I always have money in the bank because I have a system in place. And she created something that worked for her, through our coaching. She was able to create something that's sustainable 4 years later. And she's gone through life changes and different things have changes, and she's still able to do that. She's able to adapt. She's able to do everything that she needs to do. And she's still able to save money and enjoy her life. And she spends money when she wants to on things that she enjoys, but she's not going into debt. And she doesn't have the financial stress that's involved with that. And so she's able to live that even 4 years later. And I just got that message like a week ago. And honestly, it made my entire day because it showed that what I do is significant. And I'm so proud of her, of all the work she's put into it. And I haven't worked with her in several years. It's something that you just have to be able to, once you've created it, once you've put in the work to be able to create it, that it is a sustainable thing. System for yourself that you can adapt to however your life changes. Having control of your money, let's go back a little bit to this, having control of your spending, right? Here, make sure I'm staying on focus because you know how I like to ramble a little bit. Having control of your spending doesn't mean you don't get to spend your money, doesn't mean don't get to enjoy life. The key to this is really creating balance in your finances. Okay. So, what does it look like? Well, the first thing that you'll notice if you have balance in your finances is that you don't feel guilty about purchases because you don't have impulsive purchases that make you feel guilty because you've been able to control the way that you spend your money impulsively. This is one of the biggest struggles I see with not just moms, but ADHD moms and people and women in general. So we really struggle with our impulsive spending. And the reason for this is it's really tied to our emotions. And if you think about it, being a mom, it's stressful. It's sometimes you don't really have time for self-care to take care of yourself. You're too busy taking care of everybody else. And so sometimes spending can be an outlet for that. And so I've noticed throughout my life during stressful periods that I am very much more impulsively spending money on things that I don't really need or want. It's just something, it gives me that hit of dopamine right in the moment. It makes me feel good for a moment. And then the guilt follows later because I'm like, oh, why did I do that? I didn't need to do that. And then it's just a vicious circle, right? And so, as if we're stressful, if life is stressful, if let's face it, we're moms, it's always stressful. But when life is a little more stressful, we can tend to fall back on that. And so it's very important to really understand that. One of the most powerful tools that I teach, and I do this in my 30-day spending boot camp. And what it is that I have you track your impulsive spending. And so what you do is you can take a notebook, you can take a journal, whatever you want to do, and you write down anytime you have an impulsive purchase. So anything that wasn't planned for, that wasn't in your spending plan, or that you really didn't think about, or if you felt guilty about it. Guilt is usually tied to this type of spending most of the time. So that's a good trigger for you to say, oh, you know what, I feel really guilty about this. I'm going to put this on the list, right? And so you write it down. So you write down what you purchased and why did you purchase it? What was going on for you? One of the things that I had on my list at one point was that, I would go to the coffee place here and I'd go and do it all week long. And the reason I was doing it is because I was doing it because it was on the way home or it was on the way to school. And so I noticed a pattern in how I handled that. And so that's the key here. So when we're able to understand the triggers, understand what is triggering that spending, then we're able to take that and say, okay, do I want to spend money on this anymore? Did I want to spend money on coffee anymore? I mean, I can make coffee from home. I'm not really too picky, but I do love coffee occasionally. So yes, I want to spend money, but I don't want to do it every day. And so I can set up roadblocks to that type of spending. So I can say, okay, so I'm not going to spend money with my debit card. Like I have to use cash if I go get coffee. And I have my fun money in cash. So now anytime I want to get coffee, it comes out of my cash. That is my fun money. That way it doesn't evolve into hundreds of dollars by the end of the month, right? Because it's controlled, it's in my pocket. And I'm more easily able to control that with that way. So understanding what those triggers are, and if you do want to do the spending, let's say I did want the coffee spending, then I can just turn it around. Instead of looking for roadblocks, I can just add intentionality to it. So maybe I set aside a certain amount of money for it every month in my spending plan so that at least if I'm going to spend it, it's planned for. right? So it's not completely setting everything off track. And this really helps because it creates that self-awareness in how we're spending our money. Let me know in the comments if this is helping you as far as your impulsive spending. I know this is a hard one. And this is probably why my 30-day spending boot camp is so powerful. It's because we really kind of attack that type of spending and really get control over it. That's the first thing. So the first part of having balance in your finances, you're not feeling guilty about your purchases, okay? You feel confident in where you're spending your money. The second thing is you're able to achieve your financial goals in a reasonable time frame. Okay. Now, the reasonable time frame is the important part here because sometimes we get stuck in the day to day, and we lose focus. If you're like me, you lose focus. Sometimes I don't even remember what my goal is. I'm like, what? I created a goal. What was my goal? I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing with that, right? You lose focus. You just get into the day to day hustle and grind, and it's hard sometimes. And so, what should only take us a short amount of time can end up taking us years because we're not focused on it, because we're not really aware of what we're trying to do. We're not aware of the steps by step path to achieve that goal, right? So in my Savvy Spenders VIP membership, I actually walk clients through this every 3 months. Okay. I teach them and keep them accountable to that process. Because let's face it, most of the time we're really great at coming up with ideas. Like I can tell you, I have so many ideas every single day. But the problem is following through with them and creating a plan for them so that you can actually achieve that goal. And so when you create that balance in your finances, you're going to be able to do that. You're going to be able to say, okay, I know what my goals are. I have a plan for it and I can accommodate it in my spending plan, right? That's very important. Now, the third one is probably the hardest one, I think, for most of us, and that is being fully prepared for whatever life may throw at you. Okay. Um, how do you plan for what might happen, right? That it's really hard for, especially us ADHDers, because we have that time blindness thing. It's hard for us to see that far in the future and really plan for that ahead of time, right? And so what do? Well, first you need a saving system in place, okay? So this adds intentionalities to how you're saving your money. It's not just a rainy day fund. You're just not putting away money just for the heck of it. It adds intentionality. It's very specific on what every single dollar that you're saving, why are you saving it, right? And so you do that by having self-awareness and being able to recognize the patterns of what has happened in the past. So when you're able to say, do that and take advantage of the problems that might arise. Okay. So taking full advantage of those unexpected expenses that come up and cause you stress. And instead of just melting down or being stressed about it, using those problems to strengthen your money system. Let me give you an example. So let's say you have $1,000 car repair that comes up and you can get mad and you can get frustrated, but have you ever taken the situation and said, okay, how can I learn from this? What can I do differently? How can I avoid this in the future? That's what I teach is to really take every single unexpected expense that comes up and let's learn from it. Let's change it. Let's adapt your money system to accommodate it. Because let's face it, if it's happened once, it can happen again. Car repairs are going to happen all throughout your life. If you weren't prepared for that one, you won't be prepared for the next one unless you do something different. That's why I'm so excited about my spending Savvy Spenders VIP membership because I'm teaching you how to do that, right? Because it's a month-to-month program, so I'm able to see when these opportunities come up, and I'm like able to help you stay on the path and say, okay, well, yeah, this was frustrating. Don't get me wrong, but what can we learn from it? How can we adapt our money system to this situation? Because it's really easy to get wrapped up in the stress and the frustration of it all. But if you really take a second and say, okay, putting that aside, how could I do this differently? How can I change my money system so that the next car repair that comes up, I don't have to stress. I have money in the bank. Just like my client that I told you about earlier. She had money in the bank. She was ready to go for that because she's had that happen before. So she knows how to do it. That is what's really important. You're able to, again, create balance in your finances and create a sustainable change. This isn't a short-term thing. This isn't just something that's going to happen and then you're done, right? This is a lifelong change. You need to be able to adapt, and your money system needs to be able to. So the way that you manage your money system, it needs to be adaptable. And that's what this does for you. So it's important to really understand. Okay, so I just threw a whole bunch of stuff at you. Take a breath for a second. I'm going to grab my notes. What questions do you have? Let me know in the comments. Talking about the balance that we want to create in our finances and what that looks like, right? So I talked about that saving system and what you do. So that saving system, what you might do if you have that type of expense that comes up is you say, okay, well, I need to have a savings for that amount. I need to have $1,000 in a car fund account. That's now added to the priority list. It's added to the goal list. That needs to happen. And then you can go about, just like I said before, that's a goal that you set. And how do you go ahead and achieve that? Okay, well, I can save this much money every single month towards that goal, right? And you work that out and you prioritize it, because it's easier to prioritize that when you break it down into smaller bits rather than saying, okay, I need to save $1,000. Because if you're like me, I'm like, oh, how am I going to save $1,000? I don't know where would you get that? Like 5 years ago, I couldn't save $1,000 to save my life. Like it was just not easy for me to do that. And so now I'm able to do that because I'm like, okay, I can save this because I'm saving 200 for my car fund. I'm saving 300 for health, medical benefits if I need that. I'm saving 200 for gifts. I'm saving, and I break it down in small bits of what I'm saving. And then as a whole, I'm saving a lot more. Our monthly savings rate has gone up to almost 30%. And so that is a significant change from trying to say, okay, well, I need to come up with $1,000 every month. How am I going to do that? It didn't happen overnight. It happened one unexpected expense at a time, one thing at a time, that I slowly added into it and adjusted it. And that's why this is honestly why I'm super excited about the membership, because it really allows me to work with you in that time frame and be able to do that for you. So we talked about what the balance is, right? Getting a balance in your finance. So how do you do that? So the first step to getting to that level of where you're not having the stress and you're having things under control and you're able to handle whatever life throws at you is really a lot means that you need to align your spending with what's actually important to you. Okay. So I'll ask you, what's the most important thing for you? And you might say family, or you might say self-care, or you might say God, or you might say, there's all kinds of values you could tell me, right? Then we look at your spending and can't find much spending on those values. We see a lot of little spending things that don't matter, but there's not much in the categories that you tell me. And so, like when the last time I did my 30-day boot camp, a lot of times I'd get these values listed because I have them list their top 3 values, and then we look at their spending, and I'd say, okay, well, where is that on here? And it wasn't there. And see, so that's so important. Sorry. My son's playing music in the background. I got distracted for a second. ADHD moment. Sorry. Okay, so this is important because if we're spending money on what matters to us and we're not spending money on things that don't, the little things that don't, we won't feel bad about it. We're not really feeling restricted then, right? Because we're still enjoying our money. We're still spending money on things that are important to us. We're just not doing the impulsive stuff. We're not doing the things that maybe add convenience, and things like that. So it's kind of like, if you decide, instead of going on to a diet, like if you want to eat better, you just don't want to, instead of cutting out all the bad foods out of your diet, instead, just get rid of the things you really don't love, Like, I don't love sweets. Like, I'm okay without sweets. But you know what? I really love bread. Okay. So, bread, I kind of want to keep. So, I don't really love the sweets. Okay. So, I won't have ice cream or cookies or any of that stuff anymore. But I'll keep the weekly pizza night with my family because that's important to me, right? I like pizza. It's one of my favorite foods. And so, that is the thing I'll keep with me. And I'm not eating all the stuff that's not important, but I don't feel restricted because I'm still having my weekly pizza night, right? And so that's the same thing we want to do with our finances. So even though you're spending money on things that matter to you, you're not going to be spending money on all the things that don't. And that means there's going to be more money in your bank account every single month to put in your savings or to put towards your goals. All right. So my 30-day spending boot camp is opening next week, guys. You're ready to jump into the next session. If comment below and I will get you in. So if what I've been talking about tonight has really resonated with you, and you were just like, yes, I love what you're saying, and I definitely I need help with it, then this program is going to be a great start for you to make a significant long-term change. Not just that small, even though the program's 30 days, the change so significant because we're not just doing a quick financial diet. We're really getting down to the root issues there. So let's recap before we head out tonight. So we talked about what it is. What does it look like to have balance in your finances? How you won't have guilt in how you spend. You'll be able to achieve your goals at a reasonable amount of time and manage whatever life throws at you. We talked about impulsive spending and how to start working on it by tracking it and understanding the triggers. And then finally, we talked about aligning our spending and why that's really, really important because it's the key to not feeling miserable or feeling restricted like you're on a financial diet and while you're spending less money trying to achieve your goals. So I hope this was helpful for you ladies tonight. If you have questions, like I said, please put them in the comments. Let me know. And if you are interested in my 30-day boot camp that starts next week, please, like I said, comment below. I will get you in. Thank you guys so much. You guys have a great night. I will see you later.